Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, our mission is to really dig into the hidden architecture of leverage and dominance.
That's right.
We're taking a deep look at how true non-competitive advantage gets created. And this applies whether you're trying to maximize your desirability in the dating world or building a billion-dollar company.
It's the same fundamental principle.
We've got a fascinating stack of sources in front of us. It ranges from evolutionary psychology all the way to, well, the controversial business philosophy of Peter Thiel.
And we're ending with the big tech monopolies.
Exactly. We're searching for that blueprint, the one that lets certain players, whether they're people or huge companies, just step outside of simple competition.
And that's what's so often overlooked, isn't it? We found this again and again in the sources. Success isn't just about, beating the other guy. In fact, if you're constantly in that head-to-head competition, it's just draining. It's fundamentally limiting. The most enduring success in a relationship, in a company, it comes from escaping that fight entirely.
So you're not playing the game better, you're creating a new one.
You're creating a position so unique, so valuable, that the entire market of alternatives just becomes irrelevant.
Okay, so how do you build that kind of irreplaceable value? We're going to start in the most primal place, attraction, the counterintuitive power of withholding.
The hard-to-get phenomenon.
We'll look at the psychological research on that, then pivot to Peter Thiel's argument that, well, monopolies are actually good. And finally, we'll see how data-driven platforms use, well, let's call it surveillance, to build these impenetrable positions.
Let's do it.
Okay, let's start with the basics. The principle of reciprocity of attraction. Just common sense, really. We tend to like people who like us.
It makes sense. Psychologically, it reduces the risk of rejection. If someone signals they're interested, the path forward feels, safer.
Less risk.
But the research, it paints a much richer and, frankly, more strategic picture. The sources we looked at, especially a study from the Journal of Social and Personal Relationships, they point to something really counterintuitive. That playing moderately hard to get can dramatically increase how desirable a potential partner seems.
Okay, so why does that work?
It's classic leverage. A person who's perceived as hard to get is immediately associated with a higher mate value.
They seem more valuable because they're scarce.
Exactly. The researchers found participants in the study actively made greater efforts for and found more sexually desirable the dates they saw as less available.
So the effort itself becomes part of the attraction.
It's an investment. The rationale here is, maybe unconsciously, transactional. The person doing the chasing is trying to get the best deal they can by securing a partner with a higher perceived market value. And once they've put in that effort,
they're more likely to double down.
They're more likely to put in even greater efforts to see that person again. They're pot committed.
Wait a minute, is it moderately hard to get?
No.
Just being manipulative? Where's the line between creating strategic value, proving you're worth the chase, and just being a bad partner who withholds affection for power? That seems like a dangerous road.
That is the critical distinction. And it's a fair point. The research is really focused on that initial phase. The attraction, the valuation.
Not the long term.
Not the maintenance of it, no. What it proves is that scarcity creates perception of value, and that perception drives investment. We see this play out historically, too, when we look at, the broader evolutionary context.
Okay, explain that.
To put it simply, as the stakes go up, so as male investment in potential offspring increases, the selection process gets sharper.
So choice becomes more important.
Female choice becomes acutely responsive to all the variations in what the males are offering. The better the potential investment, the sharper the criteria for selection.
And on the flip side,
conversely, males, when they're investing more, they have to exert greater choice based on female quality. They have to actively compete for access to resources. The main takeaway is that variation and scarcity force a higher valuation and drive intense competition.
It's incredible to me that those high-level evolutionary pressures map so neatly onto how we frame things in modern relationships.
It's all negotiation, isn't it?
If you connect this leverage idea to psychological negotiation models, it really shows that the stakes in intimate communication are always high.
They absolutely are. I mean, look at how sexual requests are framed, even within an established relationship.
How so?
Studies show that people who frame these requests as approach goals, so striving towards something positive like more intimacy, pleasure, shared growth, they report significantly higher sexual and overall relationship satisfaction.
Because you're working together, reaching for a shared goal.
Exactly. But the danger danger, the real trap, is in the avoidance goal.
What's that?
It's this subtle but really insidious tactic of engaging in intimacy not because you want to, but because you're trying to avoid something negative.
Like trying to dodge a conflict or head off your partner's disappointment.
Or just prevent a fight, yes.
The classic sitcom trope of, not tonight, I have a headache, but sort of weaponized.
That's a good way to put it. That avoidance-focused dynamic is a high-stakes psychological negotiation. One person is using their partner's need for connection, maybe inadvertently, as leverage.
And the research backs this up.
It confirms it completely. Avoidance goals are directly linked to lower desire and long-term dissatisfaction. The relationship just becomes a calculation of risk avoidance, not a journey of joint growth.
Okay, so we've established that strategic scarcity and leveraging perceived value works at the micro personal level. If maximizing scarcity works for an individual to drive investment, how do the truly dominant players, the Thiel-style monopolies, do this at a market level?
That takes us straight to Peter Thiel, the founder of PayPal, Palantir. His philosophy in the book 0 to 1 is hugely controversial, but also hugely influential.
And his big insight is pretty brutal.
It's brutal, but clear. Competition is for losers.
I mean, what does he mean by that?
He argues that if you're competing head-to-head in a market that already exists, you're just making incremental progress. He calls it 1 to N.
So, not a real innovation.
Right. The goal of a truly great company isn't to compete better. It's to achieve a monopoly by doing something totally new. That's 0 to 1. You have to either invent a whole new category or be 10 times better than the current option.
So much better that competition just becomes irrelevant.
Exactly.
That's the ultimate hard-to-get strategy, isn't it? You're so uniquely valuable that no one can even look for a replacement.
And great companies, Thiel says, have to build structural defenses. He famously calls them moats.
Right, the moats.
And we should be specific about what those are. First, you need technology, some proprietary solution that's hard to replicate.
The network effects.
Right. The more people use it, the more valuable it becomes for everyone. Facebook, Google. Third is brand, which creates that instant loyalty. And finally, scale. Being so big, you have efficiencies no small competitor can ever match.
Those 4 moats make sure that even if someone builds a 1x alternative, they just can't breach the walls. It makes it almost existentially difficult for a challenger. Thiel also talks about the last mover advantage.
Yes, this is key. It's not about being first to market.
Why not?
Because being the first mover often just means you're the one who makes all the early mistakes. You pave the way for someone else to come in and perfect the model.
So the last mover is the one who actually wins the category.
They're the one who dominates it enduringly, like Amazon. They started in competitive retail, but they used their moats, especially technology and scale, to become more and more of a retail monopoly. They shifted the whole game from competitive pricing to necessary infrastructure.
And drawing that parallel back to our discussion on personal value, that guiding question for a startup, what important truth do very few people agree with you on? That applies to defining a personal vision too.
It's about cultivating a singular, irreplaceable position. Look at historical figures who did this. Cleopatra, for instance.
Okay.
Her political skill, her intelligence, her seduction. It was all leveraged to secure strategic alliances. Rome and Egypt. These were fundamentally transactional, power-driven deals. She wasn't competing for male affection in the normal sense.
She was making deals based on a political valuation that no one else could offer.
She had a monopoly on what she could bring to the table.
Or what about Nina Delanclos? Much less famous, but equally strategic.
An amazing example. She managed to retain leverage over dozens of lovers her whole life by deliberately avoiding the chains of matrimony and setting up these rigorous rules of engagement.
That structure was her moat.
It was. She adopted this life of regulated pleasure, and she famously retained only as much of the female character as society basically forced upon her. Her rules of access, her ability to walk away, it created immense demand and scarcity. She understood, as she said, that the unskillful woman expends in a single day everything that might keep alive the inclination she had excited.
She controlled the supply of her own attention.
Perfectly put.
So whether it's the 17th century or the 21st, the strategy is maximize your uniqueness, create demand, and enforce the rules. But the monopolists today, they're not using wit or royal alliances. They're using algorithms and data to build these invisible moats.
And that's the transition to the modern era of dominance. GFAM, Google, Amazon, Facebook, Apple, Microsoft. Their dominance is reinforced by aggressively just eliminating the competition. Well, sources show that Amazon, Facebook, and Google, just those three, made close to 500 acquisitions since 2010. They're buying up the competition before it can even become a threat.
And the secret sauce is data.
It's the systematic capture and analysis of data. It's absolutely critical. It lets them monitor and control assets and, well, individuals to a degree that wasn't possible before. This is where we get that critique of surveillance capitalism.
These platforms seem free.
But they're actually enrolling you, the user, into pursuing the platform's goals. It's not just selling ads, it's refining their control over the entire market.
And what's terrifying is that this data control gives them unique advantages, things like dynamic pricing models that change based on your user history or location. No smaller competitor can ever access that. They control the flow of commerce and information.
They eliminate fair competition.
And this is where the power of that monopoly becomes financially quantifiable. Some studies tried to measure the perceived value of these free services.
I remember this. They asked people what median payment they would accept to give up a service for a year.
And the results are just staggering. To give up search engines for 1 year, the median accepted payment is $17,000.
$17,000. And for email, it's $7,000.
Think about that. We use these things for free. But if someone demanded you pay 17 grand to buy back the convenience and infrastructure we've all just given away, a lot of us would pay it.
That is the quantifiable monetary power of a true data monopoly over our basic needs, like communication and information.
Now, if we look at how this dominance affects the labor market, specifically the gig economy, we see this leverage being used on individual workers.
Right. Gig work, it offers flexibility, which is useful especially for people with caring responsibilities. But it's almost always low-waged.
And that's by design.
It's because the structure is designed to transfer risk. That self-employed status is often just a way to avoid standard employer responsibilities.
So the platform's algorithm controls the worker.
It tracks their movements, sets prices, assigns tasks, all using that data. But the worker bears all the risk. Economic downturn, car maintenance, injury. The data monopoly controls the system, but transfers the actual cost of precarity to the individual.
This really highlights why attention and perception are such crucial currencies in any market. There's the famous Hawthorne effect from organizational studies.
Right, where performance improved among workers not because the conditions actually changed, like better lighting, but because they were receiving attention.
They were being watched.
The perceived focus and the attention they got changed their output, not the objective condition.
And that phenomenon ties directly back to our first topic, on attraction and value. It shows that crucial gap between what we report and what's real.
Exactly. Survey estimates of, say, news consumption on social media are often 2 or 3 times higher than estimates from passively collected data. People report what they think they should be doing.
So in any market, romance or business, managing the perception of value is often as powerful as the objective reality itself.
It can be more powerful.
So we've looked at 2 paths to value. There's the competitive evolutionary path, which is all about maximizing options and leveraging scarcity. And then there's the path of true dominance, which is about uniqueness and monopoly.
But, and this is a big but, if we bring this whole framework back to intimacy, to long-term relationships,
Right.
we have to recognize that applying a purely competitive business model like a SWOT analysis,
Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats.
right, applying that is fundamentally incompatible with success.
And that's a great point. Why exactly?
Because the SWOT framework assumes zero-sum dynamics. I win, you lose, or at least I strategize against external forces.
And in a relationship, that would look like
What?
viewing your partner's success as a threat to your own control.
Or using a perceived opportunity to gain leverage over them. It's always transactional. It's adversarial.
Whereas healthy, enduring relationships
They require positive-sum thinking. The idea that we both win or we're both losing. It means treating your partner as a collaborator, someone whose success directly enables yours, not an adversary to strategize against.
So the revolutionary alternative is to shift from the marketplace mindset, where you're always negotiating the best deal, maintaining your leverage, to a partnership.
A true partnership, defined by joint value creation and a genuine merging of interests.
And there's a framework for this, right? The have-not framework.
It's a beautiful expression of this idea. Instead of focusing on your individual competitive advantage, the couple collaborates. You honestly inventory what you collectively possess, resources, emotional capacity, time, connections, and what you collectively lack.
that immediately changes the conversation. It moves from how do I maximize my advantage over you to
Given what we have and what we lack, how do we solve this problem to get what we both want?
it's joint problem solving.
The final revolutionary approach in relationships isn't about finding the perfect person in the market. It's about creating a partnership so unique through mutual investment and shared goals that all the other alternatives become structurally and emotionally irrelevant.
You don't compete better in the market.
You create a new category of enduring connection entirely. You leave the market behind.
The paradox is so clear. Leverage might buy you a seat at the table, but it's partnership that wins the long game. Strategy, whether in romance or business, hinges on the quality of the value you create and your ability to avoid that crowded field.
The competitive path relies on scarcity and individual leverage. The truly successful path relies on unique, overwhelming value and ultimately collaboration.
Which suggests there's a necessary sequence here.
I think so. First, you have to understand the competitive game and the role of leverage. Because if you don't understand the market, you'll be exploited by it.
Know the rules before you break them.
Second, you have to define your unique, irreplaceable value, your personal monopoly. And finally, when you do commit, you have to commit fully to creating a collaborative, non-competitive future together.
Which leads us to the final question for you to think about.
It does. It raises an important question. If, in the competitive dating market, maintaining leverage means selective withholding, and in the successful business world, monopoly means overwhelming dominance, where do you draw the line between maximizing your individual market value and committing to the vulnerability that's required for genuine, revolutionary joint value creation? Something to mull over until our next deep dive.